G'day YouTubers, Spaceman AUS here. I just want to talk to you about the Roswell crash, alright, that everyone talks about. When I worked in the video shop in Box Hill in Melbourne, we used to have this old American gentleman come in and watch nothing but documentaries on UFOs. Alright, now we only had 5 different documentaries, and they were pretty ordinary, but this old fellow would come in and ask if we had any new documentaries, and we told him no, so he just grabbed the same ones and watched them over and over and over again. Well, one day the government told us we had to hand them all in, that they were causing them too much controversy, and we had a month to comply, and they were going to fine us $2,000 for every video that was unaccounted for. So I knew of a couple of videos from another video shop that I really liked, and I thought, oh damn, I'm going to go and copy those. I want to dub them before they disappear. Now, one of the documentaries was actually it was a documentary about the Roswell crash, and the other one was a reenactment of the Roswell crash, the things that happened, in the missing scenes, the times. So, anyway, but the documentary, it had a photograph in it of these 2 American soldiers holding up what looked like a dead grey alien. And it all looked legit to me. I really liked it, and I thought, I want to keep that as evidence of other life. Now, so I ended up making a copy of these films, and this old fellow had come in, to as usual. Now he never came in, this old fellow, and if it wasn't, if it was past 8 o'clock, he wasn't coming in. He was punctual like that, He'd pretty much come in at 8 o'clock every time. And anyway, he comes in this night and he's asking, have we moved the documentaries? And I explained to him, no, the government had told us we had to hand them all in, and we're going to fine us for anything unaccounted for. And so we didn't have any anymore. And he got all depressed, and he put his head down and, oh, that's terrible, and was very upset about it. And I felt sorry for him, and I said, look, I've got a couple of tapes that I made from another video shop that I thought were really good, and they told him that one was a documentary and the other was a reenactment of the Roswell crash, and he was welcome to watch them if he liked, for free of charge. And he said, oh, that'd be terrific, he reckoned, So I brought them in for him to watch. Well, the very next night, he came in at 10 to 10. Right, now me and my mate David, we were shocked, like we God, what's he doing here so late, like it's unusual, and he was standing in front of the kids' videos, which we knew he didn't watch, looking over his shoulder, waiting for people to leave the shop. So once eventually they left, and he approached the counter and he asked me, could I keep a secret? And I said, yeah, well, I'm a man of my word. I've been brought up that way, you give your word, then it's your word. Well, he said to me, if he was to bring in a video for me to watch, would I promise him that I'd have it back there at opening time tomorrow? And I said, I agreed to that, and I said, yeah, for sure, And he put his hand out and he made me shake hands with him, and he told me that it's important that I keep my agreement, because he was told that if he tried to leave evidence behind after his death, that these people would kill off his whole bloodline, and he truly believed that they would do that. So he, we shook hands on it, and I promised him I wouldn't. And I didn't. I am a man of my word, I sort of wish I had of nowadays, because the alien autopsy film that was kicking around years ago, this film he showed me would have proven that real. Because in the film, It turns out it was his father's farm that the crash site happened on. And before they reported it to the military, him and his next door neighbour, they owned 30,000 acre cattle farms, and they were driving along checking the fence lines, right? Well, both of them had the first reel-to-reel handycam cameras bought for them as Christmas presents. So they jumped out, and with both of them with each camera, filming each other, so that they could prove to their children that what they said was true, because they knew that the government would make them out to be liars. So they filmed each other doing this stuff. Now, there was actually 2 incidents. Now, when the first crash site they come across, it was basically just all this silver debris everywhere, as far as your eye could see across this paddock, and you could see where this thing had hit the ground and ploughed the dirt up, and just broke up into pieces. And they were going to walk around and try and find something that had writing on it that proved it wasn't from Earth. So they go through the fence, and they start looking, and there's all this silver foil everywhere. He's going, oh, there's aluminum foil everywhere, you reckon, right? Well, he's looking at this piece on the ground. It was about 2 foot long and about 1 foot wide, and he picked it up off the ground to look at it, but it just hung on his hand like it was silk. Like that's why I've drawn it here, like laying over the rock. It just, all the impression of the rock just came through. It was like a thin cloth, but it was shiny like alfoil, or aluminum foil they called it, of course, in America. But anyway, he got this stuff, and he said, oh, I wonder if it crumbles up like aluminum foil. So he squashed this stuff up into his hand. Now, he said, oh God, I can't feel it anymore. Like he lost sensation of it. And he had his hand clamped like a fist, right? Well, he started lifting up every finger. And he only had 1 more finger to go, right? But you still could not see this piece of alfoil that he squashed up in his hand. And when he lifted up that last finger, what he saw was this dot of liquid metal rolling around on his hand. But while he was rolling it around on his palm, it unfolded itself and just folded back out like mirror finish, like every single crease in it just disappeared. It was like really amazing to watch, And I'm telling you, this was back in when I was 20 years old, right? So about 84 or something like that. Right now, there was no computer graphics around and shit that could replicate this. I've seen people try to replicate this. Other people must have seen this film because they've tried to replicate this, and it's nothing like the real thing. So that was the first thing they found, right? But then they go further into the paddock and they find this square sheet that was like 4 foot square and 1 inch thick. Now, there was nothing on the top surface, but he thought, oh, maybe there's writing on the other side, and he actually went to pick it up, but he almost just, because he thought it was going to be heavy, he just about threw it away from himself, right? But he ended up hanging onto it by the corner. With one hand, he's hanging onto this 4 foot chunk of steel and spinning it around in the air, showing you that how light it was. And, there was no writing on it, but just the fact that it was so light, he just said, oh, we've got to do some tests on this, and he put it in the ute to keep, for testing. And then they continued on looking for evidence. Well, the next thing they find was this beam. They found it was only about 2 inches tall and about 12 inches long, and it had all these hieroglyphics through it, but they were more like the crop circles, like lines, dashes and marks and that. And he commented saying, well, I've been to Egypt and I don't think I've ever seen any writing like this. I think we've found what we're looking for. While he was doing that, talking about it, the guy with the camera holding onto the camera could see this sparkle coming off the grass behind him further back and sparkling away in that. So he tried to guide his mate who was talking in the film to that object. And he's looking and looking, and he was basically standing on it. And the guy said to him, "It's right in front of you, you know," and he still couldn't see it. So he then come back to where the guy was with the camera, because he said he didn't want to move in case he lost it. So he stayed where he was, and the other guy come back with the camera, and he got his head in front of the camera, and he spotted the sparkle, right? And he thought, "Oh, right, I can see it." So he moves in and he picks it up, and it turns out to be this here. It was what they thought was a diamond, the size of a baseball or something. You know, it was pretty big. Then he was saying, like, it's the biggest diamond he's ever seen in his life. And I'll tell you about what that was later, because actually I got to see a film on YouTube where a soldier was whistleblowing about it. But I'll finish my story first. Now, they get locked up, right? For 3 weeks they locked them up, you know, trying to get them to make a story about the weather balloon. Well, they refused, you know, and eventually they'd slipped up. "Oh, that was no weather balloon. You know, we tested that material. There was no way it was a weather balloon," because they got this foil, right? The foil, and the reason I'm showing it on the rock is because they laid it on top of a rock out front of the barn, and then smashed the hell out of it with this 18-pound sledgehammer, right? Now, it broke the rock up and that underneath, but this alfoil, not a mark. They could not harm this stuff in any way. They took it into the barn, the alfoil, and then got the oxy out, right? I've only drawn this in here to remind me, but they got the oxy out, and they tried to cut this stuff with the oxy. They couldn't cut it with tin snips or scissors or any other thing with this foil. They couldn't blow a hole through it with the oxy. And then they tried to cut the thicker sheet, and they made it glow red hot, white hot in the middle, you know, like it got that hot, but it was doing nothing. It just glowed red hot. But then they realised not only was it doing nothing, there was no heat. They made it glow red, white hot, and then put their hands straight on top of it, and they felt nothing, all right? And they same deal with this as well. They put on that boulder out the front of the barn and slapped the crap out of it with that sledgehammer. Not a dent, all right? They could not harm this material in any way. So they then, because they had slipped up that they tested some of the materials, the military then realised they collected items, you know, and they went and raided their house and they got all this stuff back off them. But they knew nothing about the film. They never mentioned anything about the film, so they knew nothing of that. But because they had collected their proof, so they decided, well, okay, let's just do this bloody weather balloon story then and get the hell out of here, because I'm dying to see my family again, because they'd been locked up for 3 weeks at this time. So then they go back on the job and they're driving along the fence lines again, checking the fence line. Well, then they come across what they thought at the time was this. They thought it was an escape pod from the first crash site, right? But I don't know, you know, I've heard other people say there was more than one crash site. So, and of course there was, you know, the first one that broke into pieces and then this one. But this was 3 weeks later, right? Now, they had got out the car again, and one of them had the camera and the other guy didn't have the camera. But they'd gotten through, one without the camera had gotten through the fence, you know, and they ran down this hillside here. They were sort of going down a hillside. And as he was going down, all these college students come up out of the bush here. There was a hillside up over this way. And they started coming out of the trees and that, and they said, oh, they could see this thing shining from up on top of the hill, the mountain, and they wondered what it was and came to investigate. Well, they'd asked the 2 farmers that, you know, like who were walking down the hill this side still, had they been on the craft, you know, and they said, no, we've only just got here. And they asked them, would you mind if we have a look? And they said, no, go for your life. So they were closer to the UFO. So as they got to the UFO, as they were heading for the UFO, the farmer without the camera, who was going down the hill, noticed these 4 grey aliens. Well, they're not grey, they're the same colour as us actually, and look like children with big heads, you know, adult-sized heads. Some of these alien autopsy pictures you see of the alien with the damaged head and all that, that's what they look like. They were real, okay? Now, as he walked up towards these guys, one of them lifted up its hand and showed he was alive still, you know. And the farmer didn't hesitate. He just went in there and, you know, checked them out. And it turned out 2 of them were alive and the other 2 were dead. But this is why I wonder, you know, like, this must have been a second crash later on. Maybe they were looking for survivors of the first one or something, I don't know. But for them to be, 2 of them to be still alive 3 weeks later, I don't think this happened at the same time. But anyway, this farmer with the camera, he was standing over the top of them, filming them while his mate was checking them out. I mean, that's how close a look I got to see these guys, right? Now, while he was doing that, next minute you hear all this fence wire up above snapping, and that the fence that they went through. And the guy with the camera's gone, oh shit, and he puts his camera down. He had it on a strap over his shoulder inside his jacket. So he put the camera down and he kept filming. He said, look, I'm going to keep filming if I can, but if the military gets suspicious, I'm going to have to cover it up, right? So he kept filming. Now, the reason, they just told them all, they gathered them all up, all the people, and they just told them to move over here sort of thing, over this way somewhere, back up on the hill where the farmers had originally come down on. Now, the reason the fence wire had broken was because they'd driven 2 of these ambulance trucks through the fence. Now, remember I was telling you about the photograph of the 2 soldiers holding up the dead grey alien? Well, the first truck pulled up and they threw the 2 live aliens onto the stretchers and into the back of the van, and off it went. But then they go to put the dead bodies on the stretchers and in the second van when it pulled up. Now, before they put this alien on the stretcher, another soldier comes up and says, oh, I've been asked to take a photograph for evidence of blah blah reasons. I don't know what their reasons were, but he reckons he had to get a photograph of it, right? So it turns out, so I'm just trying to get that a bit closer for you. So it turns out, yeah, they said, oh, no worries. They picked this grey alien up and hold him up for a photo, which was the photograph on that other documentary of the Roswell crash I saw. He showed me that photograph being taken, all right? And that's why he wanted me to see that film, okay? I'm telling you the truth, guys. This is what happened. Now, I'm just going to go back to that drawing of the diamond for you, because what ended up happening with that guy, this diamond, a soldier, because all my life I've searched for evidence proving what I'm trying to tell you guys, you know. Well, there was a story a while back on YouTube where this soldier had come out claiming that they had these 2 live aliens captive, and they were kept in a room that was like a big microwave, you know, in case they tried to do anything sneaky, you know, they could zap them. Well, this soldier said his job was to guard this diamond. He said no matter wherever they locked this thing up, it would get out and would levitate towards where the 2 aliens were kept. And they'd have to grab it, you know, lock it away again somewhere else, you know, but this thing would just keep getting out. And under X-ray, what it turned out to be was an advanced supercomputer that ran on any available light source, okay? It didn't run on power, it ran on light. And that's why they're trying to make these technologies for it, because they're trying to get access to this computer. All right, they're trying to interact with it or get it to, you know, find out its secrets or read its memory or whatever, you know, but it's way advanced. And that's where all this, why they're trying to reverse engineer this stuff. Because he said, eventually they'd said, you know, oh bugger it, let's just give it to them and see what the hell it does, right? Because they knew they would never figure this thing out. It was too advanced, you know. So they ended up apparently giving it to these aliens, and what it did was they produced a hologram out of it. and they showed the whole history of humanity, about the pyramids, about them, how they created us, like, all of it. They know the truth, all right? This computer showed them everything, all right? So I just wanted to mention that as well, okay? That's what this thing was, a supercomputer that ran on light. Okay, so that's all I wanted to talk about, but I'm telling you guys the truth, all right? This is absolutely what happened. I got to see the farmer's son's film, or the film the farmers took themselves for their sons and that, for their kids, so that they could prove that what they said was true. All right, and that's what I saw on this film. So I hope you all enjoyed what I'm telling you about, but that's where I think all the confusion came from, all right, because there was more than one incident, and they're mixing the truths and things like that. Okay, so I hope this helps you all, but that's all I can tell you about it. Okay, Spaceman out.